So the first story is a little bit of a heartbreaker. A very, very dear friend of mine was the owner of a CrossFit gym, and they had this location that was bursting with members. They could barely take on another member inside of their CrossFit gym. And so they decided it was time to go to the next level to get a bigger space. Unfortunately, they took on too big of a space. The rent was way too high compared to their revenue, and they ended up going out of business, and the gym was gone. If they would have used some critical KPIs to be looking at what percentage of their revenue was going towards their various expenses, including rent, they could have picked a better intermediate step instead of going from small space to very big space. Unfortunately, they didn't have an eye on that critical KPI, and they ended up, unfortunately, going out of business. The second story, this is actually also from the fitness world. This is another one of my friends of mine. He owns a handful of Fit Body boot camp locations. And because he knows his labor KPIs, he's actually able to watch what percentage of his revenue goes towards labor. And he's got this so dialed in that he knows that if labor goes above a certain percentage of revenue, then that location probably, it doesn't really know what they're doing, or they don't know enough of what they're doing, because too much labor is going into running that location, given the number of members and the number of dollars that are coming in. So that's like a pretty cool ninja skill when someone can say, hey, too much, like I know that my ceiling metric, I should not be spending more than this percentage of revenue on labor or any other expense category. Now, what's extra cool is he actually also knows the floor number. And so it's actually possible to spend too little in an expense category. So if you think about it, if he's spending too little in labor, given the amount of revenue that he's got coming in, that means that his staff on the floor at that location are running around like crazy people, working crazy hard. And that's not sustainable. If that happens for too long, then they're probably going to go find work elsewhere, quit, and now he's losing an all-star staff member, right? The third story of really cool ways that KPIs have helped is a story of a trucking company. A friend of mine was consulting to them, and as their revenue went up, their cost for fuel was like disproportionately going up way too quickly. So they started looking into that particular KPI, and they were absolutely puzzled. They couldn't tell what was going on. So they dug in some more into that KPI, and it turns out that actually one of the truckers at the trucking company was actually stealing fuel out of the semi-truck. So this driver would pull into the yard at the end of the day and would actually park next to his personal pickup truck, grab a garden hose, siphon fuel out of the big truck, put it into his pickup truck, and then he'd drive the big truck back into the back of the yard, fill it up with company gas, and no one knew until they looked at the KPIs, which led them to looking at the security footage, which led them to catching this employee stealing from the company. So it's incredible how KPIs give us this like X-ray vision into our business. And KPIs are not as important when we've got like a low six-figure business, but as our business has become more complicated, it's much more important to have higher level tools to handle the greater complexity of our companies, especially when we're not the one who's dealing with every one of our customers or doing all of the sales anymore.